Hello everyone, I'm Nightspin, and today we are doing another r/nosleep horror subreddit. For our first story today, we have the story called Rules of Our Farm by u/LunaTheNightmare. Well, hello there. If you're reading this, then you've probably bought our old farm. We used to want to keep it in the family, but times are hard. Anyway, the reason why we're writing this is to give you a few tips on how to keep the farmhouse in shape. The basement floods when it rains. Just wait for it to stop and eventually it'll drain. Don't try and drain it yourself. And don't look for the source of the splashing. It's just rain after all. After it rains, you may be tempted to investigate the teenage giggling. Don't. If you have dogs, make sure you don't let them out before sunrise and after sunset. We made that mistake. The senior locals say it's coyotes, but refuse to answer why they laugh instead of yell. You might be tempted to track down whatever teens thought it'd be fun to walk through your cornfield by following the trail of flattened corn stalks, but we suggest you don't. They don't like to be followed. If your wind chimes start to ring on a windless night, go back to sleep. What comes after isn't something you want to hear. Ignore the clawing in the walls. It's just mice, no matter how loud it gets, or how loud the screaming becomes. It's just mice. We don't have a scarecrow. Ignore the sweet old lady who walks around asking for donations. It's not money she wants. Ignore the cries and pleads from the bottom of the well. He's been there for 5 years. There's no resident named Priscilla anymore. She was supposed to be gone 20 years ago. All children ages 0 to 12 should remain in their rooms between the hours of 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. He likes them young. The birds left a long time ago. During soy season, ignore the shadows walking in the fields midday. Avoid Keck Road. It's not as short as your GPS says. If the road pops your tire, do not get out. Call for aid and wait until 4 people are there, armed and waiting. Do not make eye contact with the field. The power goes out at 12 a.m. every night. It's safer for all of us. If a black and gray farm cat approaches you, make sure it only has one mouth. Throw any leftover meat from dinner into the field. You don't want them to come get it themselves, do you? Don't look out the window at night. You may not see them, but they sure as hell see you. Follow these tips and you should make it. Don't be stupid like my mother was, who ended up with an axe in her skull. Or gullible like my youngest brother when he listened to the well. Don't be neglectful like my father, who ended up leaving my baby sister out for the man to devour. Don't be spiteful like my father either, whose only remains was his ring finger and wedding band. I don't want to have to come back and teach another family the rules again. Sincerely, Priscilla. The Eraser. I admit I shouldn't have been messing around in the woods at witching hour. In my defense, I didn't think there'd be anything out there that posed me any significant danger. But what happened to us is beyond messed up for a number of reasons. My name is Dan, but you don't know me. Nobody does anymore. And not one person believes this story. I hope someone, anyone out there, will read this and at least try to understand what I'm going through. This night started out like any other. I bought the marshmallows, Sita brought the chocolate, and Jeff brought the graham crackers. We were stoked about the bonfire. We'd been talking about it all week. Out in the woods across the stream, there's a bear cave on top of a cliff. It's not actually a bear cave. There aren't many bears in San Antonio, but it was a pretty kick-ass cave, and from the mouth of the cave, you can see the stars like all get out. We made our way up to the cave, which was no small trek, mind you, and began setting up. Jeff set up his radio while I set up the logs, and Sita said something I'll never in my entire life forget. Hey, do helicopters have headlights like a car? I stopped for a moment at the strangeness of a question and then set the bag of logs down as I looked up at her. No, usually just one searchlight. I didn't know crap about helicopters, but Sita thought I was smart and I didn't ever want to betray that image. I was weirdly proud of it. Surely enough, though, I stared straight ahead about what seemed to be a helicopter. Commercials airlines don't hover, and it had two headlights. The second thing I should mention about this helicopter that it was too close to be as quiet as it was. Hey Jeff, you know any helicopters with headlights? I asked him as he fiddled with his radio. No. Why the heck would I know anything about that? He asked, as he mumbled something about its batteries. His answer was fair enough, though. Jeff was a country boy with a one-track mind. He didn't care much for learning unless it was about hunting, building crap, and guns. Suddenly, the lights turned towards us. Something inside told me to hide, but I shrugged it off. No way I was going to look like the wimp who was afraid of helicopters. I think it sees us, Sita called out as she waved at it. It got closer and closer, and still the sounds of blades chopping the air was totally absent from the quiet of the night. I started to feel uneasy as its lights washed over us. I swallowed and took a step back as it glided through the air like a ghost. Guys? I heard Jeff's voice as I shielded my eyes from the light. Ain't no helicopter. That was the last thing I heard before everything went white. Even whiter than the headlights somehow. Like a billion lumens shot straight through my dilated cornea with surgical precision. My head felt like it split open. When I came to, I was in a red room. I slowly opened my eyes to see Jeff sitting against the wall. He had his arms wrapped around his knees and looked over to me with a forlorn look in his eyes. My gaze drifted over to Sita, who was still knocked out cold. I slowly lifted myself off the floor, but my body felt like a ton of bricks. It felt as though I'd been drugged. It was so eerily quiet in the room that all I could hear was the blood in my ears and the pounding of my heart. You alright, buddy? Jeff's voice broke through the silence. What happened? I asked as I got to my knees. No, he responded with a heavy sigh. You ask me? Aliens. I glared at him for a split second before pushing myself against the wall with him. Where are we? Well, he responded, as far as I can tell, we're stuck in this room until the murderer comes back for us. He motioned towards something that looked like a rectangular sliding door. That's the only thing that looks like a door, and I couldn't get it to budge. I sighed and let my eyes fall back on Sita, who was moving slightly. I looked back towards the door. It had a big window in the center. You tried breaking that window? I asked. It's thick, he responded. Bulletproof? Missile-proof. We both sighed. Suddenly, there was this noise like a hissing. The kind of noise a school bus makes when it stops and opens its weird folding door. Our eyes turned towards the sliding door and it slid open. 3 aliens stepped through. I wish I could call them something else. I know you're all looking at your screen and rolling your eyes. I can't blame you. But that's what they were. Your stereotypical, big-headed, giant black-eyed aliens with slender bodies and silver clothing. I couldn't believe it myself. It's hard to remember anything specific about that moment aside from how I felt. Dread. I felt absolute dread. I was more afraid of them than anything I've ever been afraid of in my entire life. I would have killed myself just to get away from them. It wasn't that they were particularly scary looking, but the emotions that filled my body were staggeringly powerful, as if my body instinctively knew something about them, but my mind didn't. Jeff and I started screaming as he pushed ourselves backwards and away from them. The middle alien walked forward and grabbed Sita by the back of her arms, began dragging her away. She became fully lucid in that moment and stared, screaming as she was dragged towards a doorway. And then she screamed my name. I couldn't tell you why, but above everything else going on in my body, it compelled me to move. I bolted from my position and clumsily shoved the alien away from her while the other two grabbed me. They weren't strong. I flung them off of me and reached my hand down towards Sita. Her eyes conveyed such gratefulness. I'll never forget that. Suddenly, there was an immense pressure and my body hit the ground. Hard. I couldn't move at all. The three aliens were barking at one another in horrific voices in a language I couldn't comprehend. I managed to pick myself up off the ground to face them. There was now a fourth alien in the room, and its hand was on some kind of remote with a dial and some lights on it. Now that I've had time to think about it, it probably controlled the gravity in the room, but I can't come up with any reason as to why it didn't affect him. It picked Sita up again and carried her out of the room screaming. I cried so hard. I can hear Jeff crying too, and I considered him to be an emotional stone fortress. I never saw her again. The worst is not knowing, I swear to God. They came back for me, dragged me out of the room next. I saw Jeff pinned against the wall by gravity, primal fear and sorrow in his eyes as they dragged me away, something I see in my dreams a lot. They did a lot of things to me up there. They fed me stuff that made me hallucinate. They put me in some kind of chamber that made me feel like my lungs were on fire. They tested my reflexes the way a doctor does when you're a child. They made me perform a lot of pointless tasks and puzzles. I even saw Jeff for a moment during one of those experiments. But he was in another room, and we didn't get to talk. Only exchange worried glances. After what felt like eternity of tests, they took me to a bright room and strapped me to a table forcefully. I was weak. I couldn't fight them. After an hour or so, an alien with larger head and darker skin entered the room. Primal fear arose in me and I immediately started crying. I didn't know how, but I knew this one. Walked up to the side of the table with a cart of metal tools. It strapped my head down and looked me dead in the eye. I stared into its eye and saw nothing but dark swirling clouds of madness, devoid of any ethical thought, any shred of empathy, or anything else remotely human. It was like locking eyes with an intelligent bug. Furthermore, it looked as if it were tired. There were dark rings darker than its skin beneath its eyes. I don't remember when I had stopped screaming, but I couldn't stop. And then it spoke to me. "Don't you worry," it said in a horribly raspy voice. "I'm the eraser. I'm going to empty that head of yours." I screamed as it cut into my head. I passed out from the pain. When I woke up, I was at the mouth of the bear cave. It was daylight. My clothes were on, but my shirt was on backwards. I started hyperventilating and suffered the first of many panic attacks that were to come. Jeff and Sita were nowhere in sight. I hurried home. I didn't know what else to do. When I came through the front door, my dad screamed at me, told me to get the hell out of his house. My parents, nor my brother, knew who I was at all. The dog still recognized me, but they acted like I never existed. I tried explaining, telling them things that would only know about them. They listened and couldn't deny my knowledge. They did feel as if I looked eerily like them. After a lot of talking, I convinced them somewhat. They've agreed to let me stay, but nobody at school knows who I am. It's as if I never enrolled there. Same for Sita and Jeff. There's no record that they even existed. I don't know if they're out there somewhere, but I can't find a shred of evidence that this even happened. I even went to the gas station Sita bought chocolate at and asked to see the camera footage. The owner was nice enough to check for me, but that day's footage was completely corrupted. I'm a ghost. I don't have a social security number, a record, birth certificate, nothing. But I'll fear that soon they'll realize their mistake, and the eraser will come back for me. I still see that thing in my dreams, and I don't know how to handle this. I feel like just ending it. Jeff, Sita, if you're reading this from somewhere, meet me at the high school. Please, I don't know how to handle this, and the only people that even remotely believe me are my parents. I just don't know what to do. Maybe I'm legitimately crazy. Maybe I should go back to the bear cave and hope that they finish the job and just erase the memories I have. If I can't come to grip with this, it's a long drop from that bear cave. For my man, my family, for whoever. They can't get in, but I can't get out. I don't even know what. You probably want an explanation. I don't know if I have time, but they seem content to trap me in here for the time being, so here goes. Okay, so 2 months ago, I was having lunch at work and I got bored of playing the same old games on my phone. So I went into the Google Play Store and searched for free games. And this fun-sounding horror game popped up as a suggestion called No One. The premise is simple enough. You wake up in a kind of enclosure with a high fence around it. There's buildings, a little wild-grown forest, and a lot of open space. Your task is to find 5 keys to unlock the gate and get away. But you are not alone in there. It's basically the same kind of game as Slenderman, but it's got multiple things, for lack of a better term. And you never see them. If you get caught, there's a sudden loud shriek sound effect and the screen turns black before it displays game over. Try again. It's a simple and unpretentious game, apart from one feature. There's voice recognition in it. The app didn't advertise that particular feature, so when I was playing it later that week, I got frustrated with dying. I said to myself, "Where the bloody hell? They are in the forest." I nearly jumped off the bed and fell down the stairs in shock. That game nearly gave me a heart attack. After a few seconds of recovery, I asked again, "They are in the forest." That was the first play I actually managed to make it through. I resolved to keep it for the next few days now that I discovered this new, ingenious helpline, and the game became much more focused on strategy than it had been before. Where I used to go into the forest first, I'd now explore the house before anything else. The robotic female voice became somewhat of a partner in crime, telling me where they were, or sometimes telling me that no one was around me. The amount of jump scares thrown at me died down to maybe once or twice a week, instead of a day, and I started to play the game at a higher volume in the company canteen, until one day, when it glitched. Thinking back on it now, I wonder if this is where it went wrong. I was playing with one hand, my sarnie in the other. 2 of my colleagues were sat 2 tables down from me chatting about some celebrity, giggling away. I just finished my cheese sarnie when I asked the game whether they were in the forest, and the voice answered, There is no one. But it kept repeating that phrase at full volume in the canteen. There is no one. There is no one. There is no one. There is no one. My two colleagues turned to me and gave me disapproving looks, and I fumbled with my phone to close the game. My home screen returned, but the silence did not. There is no one. There is no one. There is no one. There is no one. Finally, I decided to just force stop the game. Instant and blissful silence returned to the canteen, and I sighed in relief. It wasn't the first glitch I've seen my phone through, though this one just had to happen at work. I left my phone in my pocket for the rest of the day, but when I got home I decided to check whether my force stopping the game had caused it to glitch out permanently. This time, after I opened it up, it happened again. There is no one, there is no one, there is no one, there is no... I first closed it again, groaned, and went into the app page in the Play Store. From experience, I know that app developers tend to listen to negative reviews, but not 1-star reviews. I left a 2-star review that said, "App crashed mid-game. Needed to force close the app. Hopefully an issue will be fixed soon." After that, I sighed and hit explore. With my old pastime out of reach, I needed a new fix. I'd totally forgotten about the review until I got a reply a week later on Thursday, when I saw, "User Devi left a reply to your review." My heart seemed to lighten. I made my way into my account and checked my new messages, only to get utterly confused. The message was not the acknowledgement I hoped for, but it also wasn't used as spam. Instead, it looked like something a 5-year-old had typed into their mom's phone. "Delete the review quick." My first reaction was confusion. However, the more I considered that short reply, the more I got convinced it was just some kid on the app page trolling me. Sure enough, other negative reviews have been answered by the same user with similar comments. In fact, all of them have been. So, with an amused sigh, I went about my regular business again. Over the course of the next 6 days, the troll became more abstinent. I started receiving more and more replies from them, all more or less the same. "Delete it now, please. It's not too late yet. No joke, please don't." Until in the middle of the night, my phone beeped and I groaned, turning over in bed, ready to set aside my principles of ignoring the troll until they went away. If you interrupt my sleep, you will get ripped a new one. Simple as that. However, it was a different message this time. Run. That surprised me. Until then, the troll had been very persistent in getting me to engage, to do what they wanted, and to delete my 2-star review, but now they want me to disengage? Deciding I'd deal with it properly in the morning, I turned around and fell back asleep, but I wish I hadn't now. I wish I'd listened now. The weird thing started about 2 weeks later. The first thing that happened took place right after work. I was waiting for my man to pick me up from work on Thursday, eager to get home and have some snacks as I was starving. He pulled up at the curb and opened the door to let me in. I sat down and closed the car door. But instead of pulling off, he looked at me in surprise. "Did you just say something, babe?" he asked. And I shook my head, giggling softly. "No, you silly man. Let's get home. If you're starting to hear things, you really need some food." "I'm not hearing things, you silly wrench," he said. Oh, he was laughing as he said it, and I assumed he'd just been joking. We went home, had our snacks, relaxed, and life went on without any other major problems. The second time it happened was on a Sunday night, right before we went to bed. I put my phone on my wireless charging pad, and when it came through the speaker, loud and clear as it had a month and a half prior. "They are in the forest." "What the actual?" my man said slowly, pulling his shirt down dazedly almost. I groaned and shook my head, which prompted him to tack on. "What was that?" "Oh, it's just this stupid game I downloaded way back that glitched out of me. To be honest, I haven't played it in a long time because it's glitched." "Oh, babe, you really have to be more careful with your phone," he said in a relieved tone of voice, shaking his head as he laid down on top of the covers. "Just shut it down and come to bed, okay?" "Okay, darling," I said, rolling my eyes as I sat down on the side of the bed and picked my phone up from the charge pad. But to my surprise, the game wasn't running. "Huh?" I whispered to myself, shaking my head and pulling back the covers to get under them. My man was already snoring peacefully, and I joined him the moment my head nestled on the pillow. Over the 3 days after that, if it happened again, it happened when I wasn't around my phone, because I was blissfully unaware of anything out of the ordinary happening until next Thursday, when we just pulled onto the driveway in the front of the house. The second the radio stopped playing music, "They are in the forest," my man yelped. I nearly fell out of the car. "Okay, what the actual heck?" he said indignantly. I sputtered out an answer as best as I could while my heart still raced like a prize horse. I don't know what is happening, darling. It's not me. I haven't played this game since it glitched, I swear." I pulled out my phone and showed him the app installation page, which showed that I played it 2 months prior. "Oh, give me that," he said, pulling the phone from my hands and pressing his finger on the screen in measured jabs before handing back a progress bar on the screen showing what he'd done. "You haven't played it in ages anyway. It's messing up your phone, babe. Think that's reason enough for an uninstall, right? Just wipe it from your phone and..." "Yeah," I cut in, smiling now, because the solution was so simple and straightforward. I wasn't used to the game anymore anyway, so why was it still on my phone? "Let's just get inside. We got 3 new episodes to watch," I added in a more cheery tone as my way of apologizing for startling him twice in 2 weeks. He nodded and relaxed. "Now you're talking, babe. Bring on the Chris and the show." Grinning, I nodded and led the way inside the house. The game was off my mind after that. 3 episodes of our favorite Netflix show, and falling asleep on the sofa afterwards do tend to have that effect on a girl. And I went on playing a game that I installed after the entire glitch ordeal, in a named thing called Coindozer Deluxe. The weather got a bit more gloomy, but I didn't mind one bit as long as I could still walk to and from work. A new episode of the show me and my man have been watching got released, and we watched it. Or, that's to say, we tried to watch it, but fell asleep on the sofa halfway through. Life felt absolutely normal. Until now. An hour ago, when we were just settling in for our second attempt to watch the episode that had lulled us to sleep yesterday, my phone buzzed. It was a text message from a private number. Annoyed, I deleted it and went back to my business, only for my phone to buzz again. Another text message, this time from my voicemail saying I had a new message. "What's taking so long, babe?" my man called from the living room, sounding amused. His mood affected mine, which caused me to smile as I called back to him. "Just a voicemail, darling. Probably just a job agency that didn't get the memo the past year." Listen to it later, babe. If it's important, they'll call you back, right?" he said, walking up to me with an empty glass. And I snorted in amusement. Yes, don't worry. I meant that to say that get some snacks on a plate to take with us, but my phone started vibrating as I got an incoming call from an unknown number. Me and my man both groaned at the same moment, but I decided to answer the call, ready with my usually friendly but assertive, not interested, thank you reply. But the moment I tapped the green phone icon on my screen, my phone blared out as if I didn't have it on silent. They are in the shed, they are in the shed, they are... What in the ever-loving... My man said loudly, though his voice died away when he looked past me. Out the kitchen windows to our backyard. More specifically, I noticed as I turned around to follow his gaze to our tiny utility shed at the backmost wall. There was a glow inside of it, visible in the falling darkness. Almost flickering, but definitely swaying. Moving. My heart pounded loudly in my chest, to the point where I wondered if it was still in my chest at all. This... You uninstalled that stupid game, I thought, he said loudly, almost accusingly, and I nodded. My hands were shaking as they never had before, and I grabbed my phone from my counter, where I dropped it after the phone call, and navigated to the apps section of my settings. Yes, darling, I'd forgotten. Next thing you know, he grabbed me tightly, kissing my forehead before holding me at an arm's length as he spoke to me. Listen, babe, I'm going to check it out. You go upstairs to our bedroom, lock the door, and sit between the bed and the wardrobe, okay? Take your phone with you. I'll call the emergency service. Don't unlock that door until you can hear me telling you it's okay. Promise. I nodded shakily, and he repeated himself. Promise me, babe. I promise, darling, but please. I wanted to tell him not to go, or to be careful, or to... I don't even know what I wanted to say, but right now, I wished I'd said it so desperately. He slowly walked out, grabbing a firm wooden broom handle on his way out, and I dashed inside as soon as he closed the back door, taking my phone with me and dashing up to the bedroom. The entire mad dash took 5 seconds, maybe, but when I got into the bedroom and glanced out into the backyard, the shed was unlocked, and the glow was gone. And so was he. I muttered to myself as I locked the door, and as I climbed in the narrow space between our bed and our wardrobe, I could feel my skin itch. I could feel my heart race. I could feel sweat drip down my back. Tears spilled down my face. They are in the house, my phone said loudly. And I heard nothing, saw nothing. I tried to dial the emergency service, but my phone refused. Every time I keyed in that final digit, the screen went back and I had to go. The screen went black and I had to start over again. I don't want to hear it, I muttered as I wiped my sweaty palms on the knees of my trousers before trying again. They are in the house, my phone repeated. This time, didn't even manage to tap in the first digit. My phone screen flickered. That's when I noticed it. The faint, swaying, flickering glow coming from the landing. The upstairs light descend upon the room. Turning back to my phone, I saw the screen had turned blood red. The phone itself cold as ice in my hands as it delivered its final message. You should have run. I needed to get over there, but I also knew that all it took was one careless slip, and I'd be plummeting to my death. I swung my left foot over and grabbed onto the guardrail of the neighboring balcony. I was trying to get a firm grip with my left hand when I noticed now that I could see the woman. She was standing right at the sliding doors. It was still so dark outside that I couldn't make out any features on her. It was almost as if she was nothing but pure darkness. Afraid of her getting any closer to me, I decided to let my right hand go and swing my body over to the other balcony. My hands were too sweaty, palm spaghetti. There was vomit on my sweater already, from the fear and anxiety. and I accidentally let go. The last thing I remember was falling backwards and looking up towards my balcony. I saw the shadow lady looking over the guardrail at me. She was just standing there, staring straight down at me, and then everything suddenly went black. I eventually came to after what seemed like days after I found I was standing upright in my hotel room. I didn't know how I got there, but everything looked the same, except it was darker in my room. Much darker, almost jet black. I looked down and couldn't see my hands or feet. I tried to take a step forward, but I found that I was almost completely unable to. It was as if I was paralyzed, yet still able to look around. That's when I noticed someone sitting out on the balcony. It was me. I don't know how it was possible, but I was now watching myself sit out there and type as I did only a few hours ago before, continuing to watch myself act out everything in the exact same manner as I had done previously. I saw myself react to the shadow woman, who I now realized was me. I watched in horror as I fell to my death. I tried to reach out to myself, but I was unable to hardly move at all. Definitely not quick enough to save myself. I looked over the balcony just as I saw myself hit the ground. I watched as the blood began to seep out from underneath my mangled corpse. I sat down in the chair and picked up my laptop. Wasn't even controlling my actions at this point. It was as if I had gone through the motions. I could still see the reflection of the woman again in the screen. I knew it was actually me now, but I still felt afraid. Maybe so now that I was confused than anything. I then began to type this out, as a cry for help almost. I don't know if anyone will even hear this or read this. Honestly, I don't know what you could do to help me, even if you did. I fear that I may be stuck in some sort of loop I'm unable to escape from. I don't know how I entered this time loop or what I'm supposed to do. All I know is that I need to figure out a plan to get away from the shadow person in my room and off this balcony, even if that means falling to my death. Again. I found something horrific on a YouTube ASMR channel. You guys know what ASMR is, right? Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. Tingles, brain orgasms, whatever you want to call it. Some of us experience it, while others unfortunately don't. I happen to be one of those that do. If I'm honest, it's been a big help with my anxiety. There's been a marked improvement in my general well-being since ASMR came into my life. That is until I found one particular channel. The person always talked off camera and always in a whisper. So it was impossible to tell if it was in a male or female voice. The visuals were invariably of a dark room, a few candles providing the only source of light. Aside from whispering, they make relaxing mouth noises, clicks and hisses, whatnot. But they also posted videos involving common ASMR technique known as indistinguishable whispers. This is pretty much what it sounds like. A bunch of relaxing, albeit unintelligible gibberish. But there was something odd about these videos. At first I found them very relaxing. The simple aesthetic was deeply soothing, and they helped me switch off my brain in preparation for sleep. Yet after a while, I started to notice something about the soft, whispering voice coming from my computer speakers. It was like I could recognize the odd word, my ears focusing on the intensely faint, breathy speech. Didn't sound like utter gibberish, but there was something strangely familiar about the arrangement of the syllables. That's when the clicks started. The person behind the camera started clicking their tongue in a slow, staggered rhythm. The instant I heard them, I felt myself to feel almost floaty. My limbs felt weightless, my eyelids heavy as I began to sink into the mattress. The very last thing I remember before I must have fallen asleep was being completely and utterly gripped by the slow, steady sound of. When I woke up this morning, I felt dreadful, like I'd hardly slept at all. I racked my brain as to why I might be feeling so terrible when I saw the open browser on my computer. Everything came flooding back, the whispers, the words, the clicks. I faintly remember them being relaxing at the time, but to think of them now, they were just terrifying. I really did not like how those whispers, how those clicks made me feel. Something deep and primal was telling me that there was something very wrong about them. I decided not to watch the videos again, but it's not been as simple as that. Exhausted, I went about my Sunday, struggling to stay awake during a family meal as I fielded questions from my family as to why I look so tired. It's been hot here, way too hot, so when I got back to my apartment, I immediately jumped in the shower to wash away the grime. It was sweet relief for a few moments, but as I turned off the water, every muscle in my body tensed with fear. That same sound, coming from the other side of the opaque shower curtain. With a shaking hand, I pulled back the curtain. Nothing. Of course it was nothing, a dripping tap or something. I was exhausted and just spooked myself. I dried off and headed to bed. It's almost midnight here in the UK, but I'm still running on the adrenaline from what just happened. Like I mentioned, I headed to bed after my shower. Didn't listen to any ASMR. I didn't need to. I was so tired I think I passed out as soon as my head hit the pillow. Something woke me up. Something that made me wet the bed for the first time since I was a toddler. Right in my goddamn ear. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My eyes filled with tears of soul-shaking terror when I realized that something was above me in the darkness. I know something was there. I could feel its breath. I could smell its breath. I don't know how long I lay there for when the clicking stopped. It took all the courage I could muster to roll over and turn on the light. But there was nothing. Of course there was nothing. I've been Googling this thing for a good few minutes and I found absolutely nothing. I've had my posts removed from other websites containing why this might have happened, but I took my post down. They took my post down for marking it as serious. So please, I have nowhere else to turn right now. What the hell is happening to me? Something happened to my best friend in the woods. I can't forget about it, or forgive myself. This happened last year, and I've only now gathered enough courage to share my story. I think it's because I'm not completely blameless, and that's terrifying to me. In fact, I'm probably the main reason this happened. I live in guilt of this every day still. My therapist said it'll help if I share this incident with someone I trust. But it felt more difficult to me to say the words out loud rather than type them out. So here I am, posting this online, hoping this will help in my journey to heal from a rather traumatic experience. Hoping nobody would judge me for my actions. So here goes. On the 4th of July weekend last year, a few of my friends and I planned to hike a trail up in the mountain. It's a pretty popular trail, and the hike is supposed to be only 5 hours round trip. But the view at the top is spectacular. We packed a small lunch and filled up our bottles with water. We needed to take 2 cars since there were 7 of us. I immediately opted to go in Rebecca's car. When I told my best friend Kevin, who was driving the other car, he just sighed and rolled his eyes and muttered about how predictable I was. My other best friend, Taylor, wanted to come in Rebecca's car too. I was hesitant, because I wanted to spend some alone time with Rebecca, but Taylor had been really adamant, saying I never hung out with her anymore. Never mind that Rebecca and Taylor didn't get along very well. Needless to say, I wasn't too happy about the arrangement, but I relented since it would balance out the cars more evenly. Taylor complained the whole car ride that there would be too many people on the trail since Rebecca had picked us up 20 minutes late. I could see Rebecca's hands tightening on the steering wheel every time Taylor made a comment, so I made a few lame jokes to try and diffuse the tension. Taylor just said, "You're such an idiot, Jackson," every time. We were running late. Meanwhile, Kevin's carpool had got there on time. We told them they could start the hike, and we'd catch up. After 10 minutes of driving around and looking for parking, we finally found a spot when a solo hiker left. His face was pale, and his eyes were wide. I asked him if he was okay, but he just hurriedly got into his car and drove away as fast as he could, as if he couldn't get away quick enough. He caught a strange whiff of rotten eggs from his BO. As he pulled out, he kept his eyes glued to the rearview mirrors until he was completely out of sight. We shrugged it off, just happy to find a parking spot. As aforementioned, this was a pretty popular trail, and, well, people are pretty weird. "We won't even get to see the others. You might as well have gone on a different hike," Taylor whined. I thought Taylor had a crush on Kevin. I asked her once, and she looked angry for a second before laying out a sigh and responded with a, "You're an idiot, Jackson." Taylor said that to me a lot. I'm her best guy friend, so maybe she was just too embarrassed to talk about it to a guy. Rebecca and I exchanged a look. I said, "Hey, we're going to meet up for drinks after, anyways." I was getting pretty short with Taylor and the whole car ride of her non-stop complaining. We got to the trail. It was nice to finally be in nature. Taylor's mood was also lifting. It wasn't so bad to just the three of us, and it has been a while since I've actually hung out with Taylor. We were actually having a really good time, but the crowd was so thick. We were having a hard time making up for lost time. We definitely were not going to be meeting up with the other group until drinks. Oh, we would catch them on the way down too. About a third into the trail, Taylor stopped walking. Rebecca and I were so deep into conversation that we had to backtrack for a good minute. Taylor was waving her phone around. "Damn it, I can't get my phone to load," Taylor said. There's no reception," I said, gesturing to the trees and, well, nature in general. "You can upload it on Instagram later," Rebecca said. I know she rolled her eyes. Problem was, so did Taylor. I could practically see Taylor shake in anger. "I'm not trying to upload anything onto Instagram," Taylor bit out. At this point, Rebecca and I are getting impatient as a large family bypassed us. We urged her to move along. Taylor wouldn't budge. Her head snapped up from her phone. "Okay, I remember. It's this way," Taylor said. "What's what way?" I asked. "Okay, so on the drive up, I was looking up shortcuts up the..." "No way!" I could picture this ending this horribly, with just the three of us being rescued and put on the front page of our crummy college newspaper. Taylor rolled her eyes. "I want to meet up with the others." She looked around and pointed somewhere in the trees. "It's over here." "No way," I said firmly. "No, trust me. I actually remember the way. This tree has a super gnarly roots and..." She walked closer to the incline and her eyes lit up in recognition. "The hollow one right beside it. To the left for 5 minutes and we'll see another dirt path." She sounded really, really confident, which in turn made me believe her. Rebecca and I looked at each other. Taylor continued. "Trust me, it's steeper, but there's also less people. It cuts the hike up about 40 minutes. The idea of there being less people appealing to me, and Taylor sounded really certain of the directions. You're sure?" I asked. Rebecca shook her head in disbelief. "What?" I asked. "You can't actually be serious," Rebecca asked. Taylor grabbed my arm. "Come on, it's just this way, Jackson." I have no reason to doubt her, and she sounds like she knows exactly where she's going, so I hesitantly follow. I look back at Rebecca and urge her to follow us. She shook her head. I mumbled out an apology to Taylor, taking my arm out of her grip. "We'll just do the regular path. We'll see them when we see them." Rebecca looked upset, and now I was feeling really bad. "Taylor, let's just do the regular trail. I don't want to get lost." Taylor scoffed. If you two effing a-holes want to go a long way, then go! There's no way I'm spending 2 more hours of you two ignoring me. We're not ignoring you. Can you please just do the regular trail with us? Instead, Taylor just grabbed onto the hollow tree and pulled herself up onto the ledge. Screw you, Jackson! Don't bother! I'm not waiting for you guys. Then, Taylor turned to Rebecca and added, There's no way I'm getting your cheap-ass car ever again. Rebecca called after her. Fine, then get a ride back from someone else. Kevin's car is 100 times nicer than yours. Taylor turned around and stomped into the thick forest. Rebecca and I just stood there for a while and decided to go on a hike at a leisurely pace. I know I should have gone with Taylor, but she was being so difficult. Hopefully, this will give her a chance to cool off. Rebecca and I didn't really talk much, nor did we end up seeing our friends at the top. Must have missed them on the way down, too. I hope Taylor was with them. When Rebecca and I got to the back of her car, we got right in and we decided to go straight home instead. Our friends wanted to go to dinner and beers after, but I wanted to spend some time with Rebecca. Wasn't really in the mood to see Taylor. Life went on. Rebecca and I started seeing each other. It wasn't anything serious, but at the beginning of something, you're so wrapped up in the other person you lose touch with everyone else. A couple of weeks after, our mutual friend Kelly was having a birthday party at her place and everyone was invited. I was still a bit pissed at Taylor, but Kelly's pretty cool and it'd be unfair to skip out because of Taylor. Before the party, I got a call from Taylor. I guess she was trying to squash the beef before we saw each other. So I picked up and nothing. All I heard was static. I wondered if I paid my phone bill on time this month. We're all college students, and the rent of the housing near campus is a real killer. I have 3 roommates which I barely ever talk to. I think our only friends that have their own places are Taylor and Kelly. It was a text from Taylor. It said, Come here. Her place wasn't exactly out of the way, but I didn't really feel like going over. To let her know I wasn't still mad, I wrote back, I'll see you at the party. Tongue stuck out emoji face. And then she proceeded to text me. I see you. She probably meant, I'll see you. So I just wrote back, see ya. I looked at my phone. 5 texts from Taylor? I see you. You're an idiot, Jackson. I see you. You're an idiot, Jackson. I see you. Okay, this was weird. Suddenly I got weird chills as someone was watching me. Getting paranoid. I convinced myself that she was probably having connectivity issues and that the texts were resending on a glitch. I figured she probably wasn't receiving my text either, and I would see her at Kelly's. I put my phone on silent as the notifications kept coming in. I looked down just as a call was coming through the phone, which was now on silent, and decided to pick up. Taylor? What's wrong with your phone? More statics. The feeling I was being watched returned. Something felt wrong. Behind the static sounds, I could hear more heavy gas and breath, as if someone is choking and desperate for air. Then a huge crunching sound. A huge squelch as if flesh was being torn apart. The hairs on my arms were raising with an impending feeling that something was actually very wrong. Taylor? The raspy breath started getting faster and more ragged. This isn't funny. Again, no response. Just breathing and then choking wheeze as if air was being squeezed out of her. I'm coming over right now. Though I secretly hoped it would be a joke, rather than having her call me while choking or being attacked by someone. I hang up so I can drive over to her place. I look down at my phone a bit confused, because I know for a fact I put my phone on silent. There was another text from Taylor. I see you. I started suspecting that it was a really messed up joke, or her way of getting me to go over to her place before the party. I pushed back the strange feeling to the back of my mind. I was a bit irritated when I wrote back a short, "I'll see you at Kelly's." I see I'd gotten a few more missed calls and a few more messages, but I don't check them. My car pulled up at Kelly's apartment. I see Rebecca waiting at the curb. I got out and waved at her and started making my way towards Kelly's when she said, "We need to check on Taylor. Right now." I looked at her and laughed a bit, trying to play it cool. "Is she mad at you too?" She looked very serious. "I think something is wrong." "What? Why?" "Nobody has seen her since." "Since when?" "Since hiking. She never met them at the top." How do you know? "Jackson, nobody has seen or heard from her since we left her there 2 weeks ago. We have to go check on her. What if she didn't get back home?" At this point, honestly, can't tell if my friends are all in on a prank. They would do something annoying like that. I doubt Rebecca would volunteer to be the front woman of the joke. There's also the possibility that Rebecca might not be in on the joke. "How certain are you that they're not joking? She just texted and called me. Sounds like some crap Kevin would come up with." Rebecca looked surprised when I flashed her my phone, showing her over 70 messages from Taylor. So, maybe Taylor is on a prank. Rebecca suggested we go look for Taylor since we were the last ones to see her, just in case. Even though I was hoping Taylor would be at the party. We hopped into my car and I drove us to Taylor's. Luckily, Taylor's apartment doesn't have security since it's a crummy, overpriced apartment near the college. Despite Taylor's parents being very well off and ditching out a fortune at her place, the student housing areas are actually the worst. It crossed my mind that we could be burglars as we walk up the stairs to her apartment since there are no elevators either. I guess nobody would climb up a flight of stairs to rob broke college students anyways. I knocked a few times, but nobody answered. As if on cue, my phone gives out a resounding, even though I definitely still have it on silent. I looked down at my phone as I felt my brows knit together in confusion. "Is nobody else getting any texts?" Rebecca shook her head. I take my phone out and surely there's a text from Taylor. It's another crummy, "I see you" text. We hear a loud bang inside. "She's definitely inside," I said. As I said that, the door creaked open. The strong scent of rotten eggs permeated the air. I choked back a gag and my hands flew instinctively to block the smell from my nose. Rebecca covered her mouth and held back a gag from the stench. I peeked aside and called out to Taylor. Taylor's apartment was pitch dark. The foul odor gets stronger by tenfold. I feel like eyes were watering and my throat starts to convulse, failing to hold back the vial, threatening to spill itself. While I finished losing my dinner right on the floorboards, I noticed that Rebecca is frozen at the doorway of Taylor's room. I peered in to see what she was so fixated on. Taylor was sitting at her desk, while her back was faced towards us. Something was horribly wrong. Her hair is completely matted down with dirt and, oh crap, her neck was bent in a weird angle. "Oh God. Taylor? Are you okay?" The words flew out of my mouth and Taylor's body flinched as if struck, and I automatically moved forward to see if she was okay. Rebecca grabbed my back of my hand and jerked me back. I almost fought her off until I see Taylor's desk churning. Taylor's face was so pale and ashen. Her eyes were bloodshot and her nose was broken. Her neck was jutting out, and she let out a wet, choking gasp. I wanted to go forward and help her, but I felt this weird sinking feeling in my stomach telling me to run. Her eyes were so intensely trained on me, and the ends of her mouth shakily turned upwards until it split her face into a grin so wide it looked as if it hurt. I could feel that something horrible was happening in my gut. The hairs on the back of my neck were standing up. Rebecca yanked my arm back as I reached forward again, almost as if my body was moving on its own. "We need to go," Rebecca said, keeping a firm grip on my bicep and pulling me towards the door, while not taking her eyes off Taylor. I nodded dumbly. I heard the door to Taylor's room creaking shut behind us, but Rebecca's hand shot out to stop it before it could close all the way. She used all her strength to keep it open while still holding my arm with her other hand. Finally, I snapped out whatever reverie I was in and helped her pull the door open wide enough so that we could both slip out. Behind us, I can hear Taylor stumbling out after us, and her lips were still split shakingly into its sinister smile. She reached out at me, and it looked like her mouth was trying to move to form words but couldn't because of the smile. I looked at my best friend, knowing everything was screwed up. Couldn't help but sob. "Oh God, Taylor, no." Again, she flinched as if pain, but the grin remained. "We got to go," Rebecca said forcefully. She kept a hold of my arm, practically manhandled me all the way out to my car. I could feel the heaviness in my chest lift a bit, but I was a mess. I unlocked my car and Rebecca and I both got in. Kept replaying the scene over and over in my head. When I closed my eyes, I could still see that smile on Taylor's face and the intense look in her eyes. Taylor was. What exactly was wrong with her? Rebecca was already explaining everything to the police, panic evident in her shaky voice. "I don't know, but something is definitely wrong. Please come to my friend Taylor's address." "Welfare check then? Anything? Right now, please. It's an emergency." When she hung up, I finally found my voice. I cleared my parched throat from a combination of running and fright. What happened there? I can't. I don't understand, I asked, trying to steady the cracks in my voice. "I don't know," she replied. She looked over at me, eyes imploring. I mean, how do we know we're not imagining it? It might have been guilt. No, okay, I was lying to myself again. "I should call her mom," I said. I pulled out my phone, and it was blowing up from Taylor to the point it was draining my batteries. I actually didn't have Taylor's mom's information, but I was friends with her sister on Facebook. Her sister immediately wrote me back that her family's worried since Taylor hadn't contacted them at all since the day before the hiking trail. I filled them in on that something was wrong when we saw Taylor at her apartment, and we called the police. I was at a loss of what to say since I'm not exactly sure what I witnessed. As I finished corresponding, I told Rebecca, "You're going to drive over tomorrow morning." I paused and said, "Why couldn't she just follow us up the regular trail?" Rebecca bit her lip, looked as if she was ready to break down in tears. She should have come with us. We should have waited. We should have made sure she was okay. About 2 weeks had passed, and I continued getting random phone calls and texts from Taylor. Got to the point that I don't even have to keep it charged anymore. They officially declared Taylor dead. Rebecca and I were the last person listed to have seen her. I wonder if maybe we should have stayed and tried to help her in the apartment. If there was anything at all we could have done. The doorbell rang. It was Rebecca. "What is it?" I wasn't really in the mood to see anyone. Things have been weird since we saw Taylor. Why didn't you answer your phone? You, of all people, should know damn why I don't. The autopsy is back, she said quietly. That was really fast. I knew something was wrong by the way she spoke and avoided eye contact. I stayed quiet and let her continue. Taylor's sister was messaging you to let you know, but you never responded. She reached out to me instead. Rebecca worried her lip between her teeth, hesitating to say something. I weakly rasped out, "What is it?" She died a day or something after the hiking incident. A bunch of her bones were broken after she died. They got the results back yesterday, and I thought that you should know too. And you weren't picking up your phone. My eyes widened. Wait, what? How? We saw her 2 weeks ago. Still moving in her apartment. You saw her too, right? In her apartment. Yeah, I saw her too. I don't know. Maybe we imagined it? How? How do you unsee that? They think someone picked her up on the way back from the hike. They're opening up an investigation. I don't think Taylor's sister was supposed to tell us anything about the autopsy, but the police knew it wasn't us. This was so wrong. The words exploded from my mouth. But we saw her move! They think that we found her dead and imagined it from the guilt. We stood there stunned in silence. Neither of us believed this. We could both tell. What do we do now? We have to move on. Okay. I've only seen Rebecca a handful of times since that day, and we both pretended that incident never happened. I got a new phone number, and it seemed to stop Taylor's messages. That was shocking that it worked. I've been living day by day. It doesn't get better, and it doesn't get easier. But the days do go by. Slowly the burning of guilt gets lighter on some days. Some days I don't think about it until I close my eyes. And I remember the stench coming from her apartment. And I almost swear I smell it from right next to me. Alright guys, that was the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed. I wanted to take it a second to let the guys who created this post, Iskander_Khan, LunaTheNightmare, Jackson Pinto 1818, VespineWings, unofficialShadeDueli, Mark DeMaco 420. I wanted to thank them all for making such great stories. I got all their permissions for it. And thanks again, guys, for watching. I say you should go support these guys. They worked hard on these posts, I can see. And leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you want more content. Peace.